Wasn't them, Charles. Somebody else.
Great to see you again, my friend.
You too. Everyone was most displeased for Sunday without Charles.
Well, sorry about that. I had a speech to give down in Florida, and it was a real joy to actually get out of New York and get down there to not far away from, just south of Mar-a-Lago, actually. Very close to Mar-a-Lago. I'm not going to say where exactly, but a wonderful friend and host organized a couple days down there and a nice speech at a private club.
You're looking tan, you're looking well.
Well, thank you very much.
Refreshed to be in the sun?
Well, it was the bourbon.
The bourbon,
No,
right.
It was not the bourbon.
Well, we had basically the opposite of Charles Ortel on Sunday. I enjoyed John Hankey, but the comments were not so kind, and
we'll try to make up for that.
We're back to closing in today. I think people are very interested in hearing your insights on this FBI college bribery scandal. Alan Dershowitz called it the biggest scandal in all history. Could that possibly be true, or is he trying to deflect from the other biggest scandal for which he's defending one of the people?
Well, I actually do think, and fortunately I might have anticipated that we could get these type of questions, so there might be a few comments on that whole FBI scandal. I think when you see what's come forward, and we're going to show you momentarily what the FBI and the Department of Justice have produced, you begin to understand why it is taking so long for the Clinton entities to get prosecuted. And I don't want to, leap into that quite yet, but I think there's been a lot of good developments. It was interesting down in Florida. I did a speech almost exactly a year ago to mostly the same crowd at the same place, and many of them, they're very polite and helpful, but they're increasingly more and more frustrated that we haven't seen scalps. And that's why, in part, we come up with this, the art department outdoes itself again. I think, and this truly is epic. I mean, the combination of Hillary's face, evidently she's not using that skin cream product that, who's the one Megyn Kelly promotes?
Yeah, she's a little wrinkly. I took the color, though, from, I don't know the name of the actor who plays Harold, but it's, to match the faces. I'm frequently doing stuff with the color there.
And the president has, I took one look at it, I said, hey, is that Jim Carrey? From Dumb
the
and Dumber?
haircut, yeah. That's his real unmodified haircut.
But when you think about, I remember, obviously there was no television back then, and these accounts could be apocryphal, but there are contemporaneous accounts of what happened in 1649 when the judge...
There was no television in 1649?
No, I don't think so, not as yet. Well, they might have had it, they threw them all out or whatever, but they cut the cord back then.
Right.
So, but when they cut the king's neck, when they chopped his neck off, that was really a momentous, it's not so good for Charles I, but beyond that, at that moment in time, the King of England was thought to be invincible and all-knowing, etc. So to the very idea that a trial would sit in judgment on a king was shocking to the crowd then. And there are accounts of how unusual things happened just as the king's neck was chopped off. I forget, there was some strange bird appeared. There was some odd thing happened. Similarly, the notion that we in this country might be actually well along a path that will require the system of justice to consider putting, at least into the dock of indictment, someone who might have been President of the United States had she actually bothered to campaign in certain key states, not thinking that the election was rigged in her favor, and the former President of the United States, Barack Obama. These are, we don't joke about it, but when you think about this and when pundits talk about it, you hear people say, well, that's unthinkable, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Well, up until Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, we didn't really have a team at the very top. Maybe you would argue Lyndon Johnson, but we didn't have a team at the top that would contemplate the abuses of power that were perpetrated from January 20th, 2009 through and after January 20th, 2017. So that no former president or aspiring or presidential candidate has ever been forced to face justice does not mean that you get a pass as Secretary of State, taking Libya and turning it into a slave market and failed state, or Barack Obama for Fast and Furious. I go through a whole long list of things. Doesn't mean that you get perpetual immunity from these crimes. And I do think one of the reasons why it is taking so long to get this across the line is that when you peel the onion and you chop it up and you make the stew and you begin to see what it is these people have been doing and how many crimes they're implicated in, you very quickly get to a place that says, you can't just give them a speeding ticket. I mean, you're going to have to, when we go down this path and you see the extent of the frauds, the Clinton Foundation frauds, as far back as they went, you see how the George W. Bush administration obstructed inquiries into those frauds. You begin to understand that James Comey was supposedly leading an investigation into these frauds and gave them a pass. That Robert Mueller was briefed on the fraud, the Clinton Foundation frauds, gave him a pass. That Rod Rosenstein was in a position to pull the trigger on these Clinton Foundation frauds, let them slide, and they only got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then ultimately, I think, the most, in quotes, charitable interpretation is to say that the Clintons pulled a fast one on the Obamas, that the Clintons knew a lot more about their predicament than Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett and their team ever could fathom prior to and after January 20th, 2009, when Barack Obama became president. He and his team didn't have the ability to look into the Clinton Foundation books, which of course the Clintons were doing their best to hide. So I would like to propose a working theory that initially Barack Obama was duped. I can't.
Oh, it's that New York.
All right, exactly. But initially he was duped, he and his team were duped, and then they got more deeply stuck into the mess to a point where they had no choice but to support Hillary Clinton in 2016 and hope that she would win so that in the Hillary Clinton administration could cover all this stuff up.
Right.
But fortunately, that didn't happen. So here we sit, and this again, I think we're going to probably have, as a guest in this coffee table book, we're going to be limited to, best of, because I think my idea behind the coffee table book would be that we'd have obviously a full page poster and then probably 2 pages of writing, the inside scoop about the significance of the show or some. So you start picking 100 posters, that's 300 pages.
I represent the portion of the crowd that's buying it for the pictures. You represent
Right.
the erudite reading crowd.
But you gotta have something about each picture.
But
Right?
I was thinking picture and then a page of
Text.
how it came about, what the significance is.
So that's 200.
I do love the coffee table book idea. And it occurred to me, I have a friend who's a professional photographer who I did have a conversation with years ago about how he self-published a fine art photography book. But as I remember, it was extremely expensive to buy this book.
Yeah, that's what my book agent was explaining. When you start doing 4-color printing of this type of a picture,
Large
100 of
size
them,
and everything,
you either have to hope that you're going to sell tens of thousands of them, or an individual book could be pretty expensive. But we'll look into it.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe there's another way of doing it.
Well, and then because this photography book was very high-end printing, and then I think you can go to like Snapfish and Apple and different companies that just print books on demand. So I'll start looking into that, and it's a good opportunity to remind people, Charles, if they can't get enough of the Sunday with Charles artwork, they can become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And people can also become one-time sponsors with paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. And sponsors at the $10 or higher amount are going to get the free Sunday with Charles screensavers. So that's another way they can enjoy the artwork. And of course, people can go, Charles, to the playlist that we've put together for all of the Sunday with Charles and all of the Charles Ortel is Closing In episodes. Today is going to be our 148th episode, and people can enjoy all the artwork and the full show by coming in here and clicking on any of these. It is quite a lot of information that's been laid out, Charles. And I mean, again, you know, no one's come forward and challenged any of the facts presented. I don't know that you have ever had to do a retraction of any fact stated in this 148 video series.
Not as yet. I mean, people make mistakes. Maybe I'll make a mistake, but the goal here is really to get this information out in the public domain. One of the things I've noticed through looking into a large number of FBI vault files is that it seems when the FBI is talking about the evolution of a case, it typically begins with, we read this in the press, or we noticed this here.
Oh, wow.
You know, a lot of times, and that then triggers ultimately intense focus, a preliminary inquiry, and ultimately an investigation. So what we wanted to do, I think Jason and I wanted to do, was to get this information out into the public domain, to get experts thinking about it, to get governments looking at it, so that if there were, as we suspect, and there still are, holdovers, Obama, Clinton, both Bush holdovers.
Oh, there are.
In justice, in the IRS, and elsewhere, that will come a moment where you just have to bow to the inevitable here. You have to either say that all we're doing is incorrect, that there isn't a conspiracy to obstruct a real investigation into these Clinton Foundation frauds that is ongoing and therefore actionable. You have to prove that that isn't the case, or you actually have to do some work, you know, and like investigate and then indict, prosecute, incarcerate, and then we can move on.org.
I hope that we will. I mean, there are some holdovers that are sort of back by popular or unpopular demand, as the case may be, but they really seem to be positioning Barr as some enemy of Mueller, which I don't fully buy. So what else should we yap about before we dive into the slides, Charles?
Nada. I think we should jump right into these Slidos.
This thing is usually not here, right? Maybe hide that somehow?
I don't know what you're talking about, but
Whatever,
anyway.
we'll leave it there.
So there are several ways to look at this. I mean, you could look at this and say that the transition from the Obama administration to Trump was customary. Trump got a honeymoon period, got the benefit of the doubt. They lionized the new administration in the same way they lionized Barack Obama. And it is actually, I don't know if it's historic that Melania, is she the first non-American born First Lady?
I was wondering that.
I think she's certainly the first beautiful non-American born former model successful business person First Lady. And I remember after the election, in the
no, it looks like Louisa Catherine Johnson Adams was the first.
Oh no, come on. That's because she was English, right?
Maybe.
Right, that's going.
I guess
that's going back a ways.
George Washington's wife probably was British also.
Maybe she was French or something, but
I don't know.
Louise. But anyway, in modern history, she's certainly the most recent, let's just say, foreign-born First Lady. And I remember right after the election, when that glass ceiling did break and people were throwing F-bombs around New York City nonstop 24/7, all upset that Trump won. I remember that the catty people on television were saying, well, we're just simply not going to dress Melania Trump. She won't be able to get any clothes. Nobody in the fashion industry is going to give her any clothes, so she's going to look like an idiot. That didn't happen.
Yeah. I think I didn't realize that she's from Slovenia. I've actually been to Slovenia, Charles. Have you ever been there?
I have flown over it.
It's nice. It's really nice. They very green. The whole place looks like Smurf Village.
Is that right?
Just like nice houses and everything. But yeah, she's born in Slovenia.
Yeah, I mean, come on. She was born before there was an America in London. I mean,
yeah,
difference.
exactly.
I mean, come on.
Maybe not quite the same. So certainly,
I think she's the first.
Anyway, yes, so back to the slides. Sorry.
So as if Donald Trump got a honeymoon, of course he didn't get a honeymoon. It was like, let's see how much mud we can throw at the dude. And as we'll get into momentarily, the Trump administration, I believe, history will show, the Obama administration, history will show, worked with the Clintons and was eager to have Donald Trump be the Republican nominee. They thought they could just smoke Donald Trump. They thought they had the October surprise all waiting. They wanted to have, quote, the insurance policy, but they were highly confident that they knew how to rig. Rigging was their thing. They rigged elections across the Middle East. They rigged elections, in Kenya. They rigged elections. They tried to rig them in Israel. They thought they had this locked. Who knows if we study carefully what actually happened in 2012, and then in 2014, it's possible that other elections were rigged, primaries were rigged prior to 2016. But they thought they had the perfect, easy-to-beat candidate. They thought that Hillary would smoke Trump and that everybody would be in the clear. And then they put this plan together, and I can't see what
Jeb Bush. I was trying to find that face he made when he angrily said, "You will never be president." I wonder what this dope is doing right now.
He's probably working at Panera Bread, which is not a bad place.
I don't think he's working there.
But
Sinaloa Inc.
He's delivering packages in those shorts for UPS or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what actually did happen is that the deep state was tuned up, and I think elements in the deep state, I'm thinking specifically of John Brennan and Clapper, who knew, had to know. I think Clapper's pretty stupid, but Brennan and others had to know that Trump, a powerful President Trump, would very quickly get to the bottom with a good team, get to the bottom of what truly had happened in the preceding 8 years, and that these people would be in prison. So they needed to have a counterweight to that. They needed to put this plan in place. And they did put it in place, and they put it in place before January 20th, 2017. And Trump has been fighting, an ocean current fire hose every day, nonstop, negative press from the media. I don't think he's ever gotten the benefit of the doubt, which I don't think is fair, given the way when Barack was sworn, it was like, isn't he a genius? This is wonderful.
Give him the Nobel Peace Prize and let him go bomb everything.
Yeah, I'll never forget. One of the last times I ever watched that idiot, what's his name? It's not Chris Matthews, not Chris Wallace, Chris Matthews. They were talking about some aspect of Obama's
scandal-free presidency.
Yeah, about his ideas going forward. And Matthews turned to the guest and said, it could be that we're just not smart enough to understand Barack Obama's brilliance.
Oh.
I'm like, wow. Wait, what do they feed you in the tank?
What happened to Chris Matthews?
He's still bloviating.
Hardball?
He's still bloviating. But I think what we're seeing now, we'll get into this now, Hannity, of course, I like Sean Hannity, and I've only met him a few times, but he's very much in the business of encouraging people to watch his television show so that his advertisers who sell Depends and Cialis and all these other things will continue to pay.
It's not the same customers who need those two products.
That's right. And My Pillow, and now the Giza Cotton, and all these crazy products that Fox has hawking on their show. But he's in the business of making sure that you watch the 6-8 minute segments and then endure the 2-minute commercials in the station break or whatever. And so the cynics among us might say, well, the reason he's saying TikTok and the reason he's saying things are gearing up is he wants to placate people who are impatient, as I am, with the pace of progress under Trump. I actually do see signs, and we're going to get into them today, some concrete signs of progress, and I really do think we're not far away. It might be as soon as Friday, actually, the Ides of March 15th. We're not far away from seeing significant progress here. And I think actually the Trump team is being very clever in the way that they're beginning to get you to understand the course that I believe they're taking. I have no inside information. I'm just surmising based on my analysis and having followed this carefully for a while. I think what they're doing is they're trying to make the case about how diabolical charity fraud is with reference to this FBI thing that we're going to talk about. Let that occupy a lot of attention. Let people talk about it up and down the political spectrum and continuum. And then once people are out there quoted repeatedly say, this is actually very stupid and serious and people need to be punished, especially when we start hearing from the Harvards and the Yales and the people who could actually, if the IRS wanted to make life very difficult for these schools, they could say, look, you're very clearly not a charity. What you're doing here is, this is a way to buy influence. The professors get paid off, they get consulting contracts, the school gets donations, they overpay the professors. There is no real competition for these top schools because they're selling to a global audience now. It's not catering to Americans. You have a gigantic endowment. I mean, you could put some major league heat on institutions who have a collective endowment over $100 billion, wherein they could be terrified about what might happen. And you might start seeing coming out of these institutions, in the same way as happened after the Enron scandal, when people were moralizing about, as they should have, about the frauds. You could see the college campuses, get, as it were, religion and saying, this is quite serious. We do not.
Enron scandal, though, just brought us another alumni
and Mueller.
To the FBI.
And Mueller.
Charles, I can't recall if you said this to me in a off-air conversation or during one of our shows, but you've made it known that once the Clintons are in Guantanamo Bay or underneath the jail or wherever they belong, that colleges were the next thing you were going to turn your attention to.
Absolutely.
Did the FBI beat you to the punch?
No.
Oh.
No. Actually, it's interesting. My parents have given some donations to certain places, and we get a nice record of how well they're doing, the endowments, and what they're actually doing. And when these are done properly, the universities do excellent work. They keep great records. What we are going to show you now is so awful.
Well, actually, Charles, I have one of those records from the college endowment that you've invested in. It's right here. Look at the work they're doing. It's excellent work.
Is that cat? Which one is that?
John Belushi at a toga party.
It's a toga. Actually, I won't say specifically what it is, but my mother was an expert on Johann Sebastian Bach and a pipe organist, and she thought the Beatles were horrible, and let alone rap. Huh. And so, one of the things they did is do something for the Yale Music School, and my father, sheepishly, not sheepishly, but just knowing, but we both knowing my mom reasonably well, he was just smiling. He's opening up this latest thing from the college, describing what that had happened with the winner of this thing for 1 year. It was somebody who was an expert on rap music.
Wow.
And that would not have, Mom would not have smiled kindly on that one. Just because she thought it was, not remotely as interesting and complex as Bach. Anyway, I think there's no question that the swamp is deep. It still runs deep, but the swamp is getting smoked out here. And the swamp had a lot of motivation to keep this spoil system going, where unregulated globalism allows the insiders behind the politicians to get ever richer in a low interest rate environment, in an environment where people don't do the kind of work they need to do to look at investments carefully and just say, oh yeah, okay, somebody's got an idea, it's working here in the United States, let's assume that it's going to go to every country in the world in 3 years, when that's certainly not going to happen quickly. So I believe, I hope, on the one hand, that the Trump team has laid the kind of groundwork necessary to achieve a swamp draining and then bleach bitting and cleansing. But I would say also, that's kind of like the carrot. The stick is, I'll just say categorically, that if Donald Trump and his team don't actually make progress draining the swamp, there will be no second term for Donald Trump. There just won't.
Charles, I've just realized I've got a great new feature as of today. I can block trolls from the multi-chat app, so it's a new weapon against trolling.
That's good.
I do think that people should become sponsors of the show when they see a definite troll, and let the troll know, because if they realize that their intended purpose is the opposite of what will actually happen, then they'll stop. So if you see a troll, become a sponsor. But back to the slides.
Now, do you have anything to say about the Hollywood provenance of the movie that we're sort of...
The Barack and Hillary check into Guantanamo Bay and my personal knowledge of someone who was in the movie?
Do you have, no, I was going to say, the movie itself, Harold and Kumar.
I've seen it, and I am friends with some people who are in it, but that's all I know about it.
All right. There's your Hollywood insider moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we go to the disclaimer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an insider in Hollywood, like the guy selling the popcorn at the movie theater.
No, I think you were more.
I'm a level above that, but some people have the mistaken assumption, Charles, that simply because you work on the crew of a $200 million movie, that automatically means you're getting invited to private parties at the director's house. Now, I mean, if I told you that I had worked for IBM or something, would you automatically presume that I know the CEO and hang out with him? I mean, it's absurd. There's a lot of stupid people rolling around the internet who want to get themselves involved in lawsuits, Charles.
I agree. So this is our standard disclaimer, but before we get into it, just to mention that our approach here is really quite different than, and thankfully quite different than CNN and MSNBC and even Fox, in that we're not just trying to lecture to you, we're trying to get you engaged and engrossed in a historic set of events here where we the people can rise up and push a sitting administration and governments around the world to rip the cover off this globalist fraud and bring former leaders and current leaders of many nations around the world and big foundations and other entities, hold them to account for a fraud that is corrosive and dangerous and cannot let stand. Because if it does stand, if these people get away with this, sure, there's 7.4 billion or so souls on the planet now. A goodly number of them are going to look at this and say, you know what, it sure is, I mean, if you can lie and cheat your way and go to a casting call, as AOC may have done, and I've broken one of my rules, not bringing up AOC, the babbling bartender.
Yeah, you said not to.
I know. Got to talk to that Charles guy. But anyway, if we go to a world where you can install a politician as president and then have that politician under your thumb, and then go about a process of siphoning off and diverting as much money as possible into the hands of yourselves and the donors around you, little tips to the politicians, that's very dangerous. And we can't...
Speaking of tips, someone's working for tips.
So what we try to do here, unlike I saw, there was something in the Daily Beast, about... what did it say? It said that alleging that Barr and Mueller had met on Friday, and that Mueller wanted to indict Trump, and Barr said no, and it said there are two sources. Now they weren't sources who were in the room.
Oh.
There were sources and they weren't sources who heard from people who were in the room. There were sources, two separate sources, who heard from people who heard from people who were in the room. I mean, I have actually disdain for journalistic standards in general, because I think they're so much lower than standards that I'm aware of in the business world in contested transactions, where there's no way you would rely on hearsay to do anything, let alone publish something or act on it from a financial standpoint. But so it used to be you'd have two or more real corroborating sources to publish something that would then be called news. And now what we really have is a whole hell of a lot of opinion that is, packaged up in the New York Times and the Washington Post without the sources, that is sold to you as, quote, news and gospel. So what we're doing is the opposite. We're saying to you, look, I do have my opinions, Jason has his opinion, but it's rooted and grounded in fact. And we're providing you these sources here. You can study them. There's far more information than we can cover in even 2 hours today. So this is our stock and trade, doing it this way. We handle these presentations the way I used to handle presentations to boards doing complex transactions around the world, really the very same way. We would give a presentation to the board, we give them the links to the supporting materials, we'd also then print the supporting materials out, and very frequently for each thing that I would work on, there would be, there'd be the slim pack of slides, and then there'd be a thick pack of one appendix, and then exhibit after exhibit after exhibit, and then legal opinion, consulting opinion, you name it. Everything backing up these slides. We're not paying for third parties to check our work, though we are working with a slew of wonderful volunteers around the world, expert in their field, who really are sharpening our analysis, and thank you for that. We like comments. I mean, before I, just a short piece of advice to people: on the days that I do shows, which are typically Sunday and Wednesday, sending me a last-minute idea is not going to work that well, because I do plan ahead pretty far in advance for each topic, and I'm not going to incorporate something that I can't check. But on the other days of the week, if you want to send me something, I always look at it. I try to respond. If you have constructive criticism, I take it in. I do not respond to diatribes. But I appreciate all the constructive criticism that I do get and that Jason gets. And you can reach us either through Twitter, or you can reach me on my site. We've already done the playlists, so I think without...
Well, it's important that people know that they can reach you on Twitter at Charles Ortel, and they can find Crowdsource the Truth at CS the Truth. There's lots of comments coming in, Charles. People like the Ocasio-Cortez lap dancing for Karl Marx meme, so we'll put that up one more time. That could go in the book, of course. And someone else is telling us that Brandon Straka is going to challenge Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. I would definitely vote for Brandon over Alexandria, but we got to wait until 2020 for the next election, right? Or 2022.
20, it's two years.
Every 2 years.
For the House, yeah.
So we could kick her out after 2 years.
Assuming she survives. I mean,
well, she might be in jail, exactly.
Well, it hasn't stopped certain congressmen before.
Being in jail?
Yeah. So there's an organization called Spectator, which I believe is allied with the Spectator in the UK. And there's a breathless report about alleging that something could be happening or nothing could be happening, or a combination of something or nothing could be happening. But it might be worthwhile to hit the link if you could do it.
People already speculating, Charles, about the statements I made about Harold and Kumar. I don't understand what they think is going on, but everything becomes a conspiracy theory.
So I think Coburn, if it isn't Alexander Coburn, the famous author, it's meant to be modeled on.
But this is Cockburn.
It's pronounced Coburn.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh.
In polite company.
Sorry. Sorry. I thought that was something totally different.
Yeah. So this is the story I was mentioning.
Yeah.
Mueller wants to indict Trump. Barr says no, a sitting president can't be. But both men supposedly want to indict members of the Trump family, which I don't believe this. I really don't believe it.
Well, they might want to, but I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to be. I wouldn't mind having a Ferrari, but that doesn't mean it's happening.
You don't have one?
I don't have one.
I thought you had two.
Yeah.
But this is. I mean, it is the Spectator U.S. It's not. It's not an organ of. It's not a publication on hallowed ground.
I think these guys are just making stuff up. I mean, the other problem is, there's so many news websites now vying for advertising dollars and whatever. I mean, this is where you're getting fake news from. They just need to print something.
Isn't that what the journalistic degree is? The MSU? Is that what you get when you graduate from journalism school now? MSU? Make shit up?
Exactly. I should have gotten that.
Yeah. So, and then we have, it's fitting that this article comes in hot air, talking about Schiff, Adam Schiff. This guy, is so diabolically bad. Both of these people are, but Schiff is so diabolically bad. He is a master at telling only part of the story, making sure that if he's trying to make an argument in one direction, any mitigating facts that would undercut his argument are, buried. And he's like Schumer. I mean, the race between him and Schiff to be in front of one television camera might not end well for Schumer, because I think he's older than Schiff. But here's Schiff saying that in essence, no report that Mueller would put out has done the correct job, because Mueller didn't succeed in getting Donald Trump to testify. So that means we could throw everything that Mueller did out. It's the essence of his argument.
It's so stupid. I mean, Adam Schiff is un-American. He wants people to be investigated until found prosecuted,
Right.
irrespective of guilt.
I mean, some people already know that I was allegedly born in Los Angeles and had the good sense to leave that state after 10 months.
I like California.
Well, I used to like it. I mean, I liked it in 1986 when I spent a lot of time there. But this Schiff guy is just tells you more than you need to know about the sad state of affairs there. Now,
Charles Mueller may do a book report on Catcher in the Rye. They're going to release that.
Well,
Indict Trump on that.
So it's important to understand that there were two, I believe, at least two investigations open. One was a counterintelligence investigation opened before Mueller, opened before Special Counsel Mueller, opened under Comey, into whether foreign actors had somehow gotten inside and were manipulating the Trump campaign. Now, ordinarily, the way that I'm told, the way that type of counterintelligence investigation works, again, the Americans are innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
And the approach you're generally taking is to go to the Trump campaign and say, listen, we found credible evidence that suggests one or more parties may have attempted to or infiltrated your campaign. You need to really check this out a lot more carefully. In much the same way as, I don't know if a counterintelligence investigation was opened into Hillary Clinton outside the one that was open on July 10th, 2015, into her mishandling of classified information, whether a separate one was opened because it appeared that various foreign actors, state and non-state,
Gerard Depardieu, for instance.
and Pepe Le Pew, had somehow compromised the Hillary Clinton campaign. So ordinarily, you don't use the opening of such an investigation to dry clean all communications of any people involved in the Trump campaign to then go down alleyways that might get them, as they got them for Manafort, in bank fraud or other frauds or other crimes. And so there's something very, very unusual here that no one has gone in a straight up fashion yet and said, okay, this is the course of events. This is what was really going on
Right.
from the moment in time where it became obvious that Trump was going to be the presumptive nominee. This is what the U.S. government was doing. We were not keeping, the Obama administration was not keeping its hand on the scale, or were they, to favor Hillary. No one has given the kind of chronology out there to the public, and Rosenstein and others resist the American public's understanding of what truly was happening then, and we've got to change that.
Right.
Now, recently we have this Lisa Page testimony from 2018.
That's unbelievable.
It really is. And it's only now, there are many hundreds of pages, I think it's over 300 pages of the two sets of remarks, which I don't know if they're linked in the story or not.
Well, I downloaded it. What's the congressman's name who released it?
Is it Smith or something?
Collins or something?
Collins, yeah. You've downloaded that? If you could put that on the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We could do that. And then, but the thing is, I was like, oh, this is so big, I can't really look through it. But like, it's almost like anywhere you jump to, there's like, whoa, kind of moments throughout the thing where she's like, yeah, that's exactly what we meant when we were writing those texts.
Right.
Whereas Peter Strzok was like, oh, no,
Right.
I was talking about somebody else named Trump or
Right,
something.
exactly.
He's
Yeah,
like,
that's the
make
ticket,
stuff
John
up.
Lovitz.
Yeah.
Well, I think, with Peter Strzok, it's important to remember when we talk about Russia. Peter Strzok was in New York, I believe, in charge of the Russia, surveilling Russian-related crimes. That's what he was, so to
In
what
between texting Lisa Page
Right.
and cheating on his wife.
Right. So, I mean, when we think about this whole drama, and it's more than drama, between the Russian Federation and the United States of America, there's a long history here. It goes back to the fall of the Soviet Union, the fall of Central Europe. There's a lot of bad blood on both sides of the Atlantic. There are a lot of tortured connections amongst oligarchs, FBI people, Republicans, Democrats, etc. And the very same people who are accusing Trump of Russia are people who had it part of their long careers linked into what was going on in Russia, as well as Mueller supposedly traveling over to Russia and being, it's not supposedly, being head of the FBI for 12 years, from September 4th, 2001 to September 4th, 2013. So, I think we deserve real context, and certainly not shaped from the United Kingdom, which has had bad experience, just putting it charitably, having been infiltrated by pro-communist or pro-Soviet anti-US spies for decades, especially in journalism, but also in academia. So before we rush in here to embrace this rabbit that the Obama administration and the Clintons want us to embrace, that there's, let's chase the Trump-Russia collusion rabbit, I think what we really should be asking ourselves is, how did this small group of people, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, how did they stay involved in both investigations, in the decision to let Hillary skate and provide unbelievable deference to her, while at the same time mounting this furious anticipatory attack against Bill Clinton? This is hilarious.
Yeah, have you had a chance to view this?
I have not.
This is really well done, and I can't believe it's got so few views. This is a funny cartoon that somebody's put together. That the YouTube channel is called Right, Left of Center, and it does a good job of explaining Uranium One. And I mean, I think when you use comedy and cartoons and stuff, it has a tendency to kind of captivate the attention of people who otherwise might not read a lengthy explanation of something as complicated as this. But people should definitely check that out and share that video, because I think more people need to know about what's going on and what went on with Uranium One. And it's obviously a Star Wars fan who's made this, because Hillary Clinton is depicted as like Darth Hillary.
Yeah. So let's see, did you?
Trump administration fully prepared.
This is David Bossie quoted as saying that the Trump administration is not really ready for the onslaught that's going to come from the Democrats. So I like David Bossie. And I think he's, in essence, arguing for more of a role for himself as the Washington insider. But there's no question, especially if the economy falters, the stock market crashes or whatever, there's no question that the Democrats are ready to run with the theme that we told you all along, you shouldn't have trusted these political neophytes, the Trump people. We told you, it wasn't going to work. Now we have proof of it in the economy faltering. Now we have proof of it in the stock market crash. And then, people will be ever more fearful should we have such a set of events transpire. And the Democrat spin machine in the media will be able to just do what they've been doing since the very beginning and try their level best to push the Trump administration out the door. But that's if the economy falters and the stock market crashes. If it doesn't, then I think Trump's in an unassailable position.
But Charles, this guy is the president of the disastrous Citizens United. Why do people care what he says? Isn't it universally seen to be a terrible thing, Citizens United?
I don't know about that. I mean,
Isn't it a political action committee that allows corporations to donate way more money to political candidates than they should be able to?
It's definitely swampy. It's definitely swampy.
Yeah, this guy. Yeah, I don't like that guy. Anyway.
Now we have this the Skripal case. This is an excellent article that I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but the UK swamp and people like Bill Kristol and others who are just on the bomb a country plan and support the Defense Department and the defense spending. This Skripal saga, if we had any real journalists left, which I hope we do, some like Cheryl Hackison or somebody, to go and take a look at what was really going on, going back to the Anna Chapman exchange, the spy exchange in 2010 before the first midterm. What was going on with that Anna Chapman exchange? What was going on with why did we trade give up 10 Russians to get back 4 people we wanted, one of whom was Skripal? Why did we do that in 2010 so quickly? And are we really certain that we understand the motivations of the parties who allegedly were trying to poison Skripal and his daughter. Do we really understand that right? I don't think we do. And what was Putin's motivation for doing that? If it was fed to us by the mainstream press, this is Vladimir Putin demonstrating he's diabolically evil. Why would he have wanted to do that at that moment in time? It just didn't make sense.
Wasn't there also conflicting evidence of like two guys walking through the airport at the exact same second, and at time, it was obviously like a fake photograph?
Fake photographs and fake videos. Now, who would do that?
Yeah. People who like to spoliate evidence and falsify evidence and make up stupid stories.
That was the YouTube thing that you already put up, I think, So
good that you included that.
So here is this thing, we're going to talk about it momentarily. It's just worth looking at the shares and the views. Okay, this is the thing that came out early this morning. It was updated. It has 9.6 thousand shares. If you go to the very bottom.
What's PIMCO exactly?
PIMCO is a gigantic investment management firm focused on bonds, and it's extremely well known.
I think this is the girl who made the video saying she doesn't care about school.
That's a good thing.
Embarrassing.
She's going to go working. She's going to be going. What's that movie school here in New York? It's not really.
Yeah, the New York Film Academy.
That's where she's going to be. She's lucky, or she might be working.
They closed the one on Union Square. They moved it somewhere else for disseminating visas more conveniently.
Yeah, they're going to probably. She'll be working at Regal Cinema as a ticket taker, if she's lucky. But
what did we want to see at the bottom?
At the very bottom, there's a view count. There you go. 392,000 views as of moments ago. Now, put that in context. Larry Doyle's and Mozambique and Badass's appearance before Mark Meadows is up at, I think, 1.3 million.
Wow.
But that's after many months. This is just a day or so.
Huh.
And this is getting a tremendous amount of attention. We're going to show you why it's so significant in a second. So if we... now, the... one of the things that I've had my eye on, we've talked about it in the past, not that one, yeah. Castro's son.
Yeah.
This is there's so many scandals going on around the world that it's easy to say, well, we're not going to focus on the problems that Trudeau has. This is with that SNC-Lavalin construction company and the growing.
I think people want to know what that's all about, Charles.
Well, that's all about is in Montreal, in Quebec. Trudeau is an MP from Quebec. I'm not sure where exactly, somewhere in Montreal. It's very important to his party, the Liberal Party, that they continue to keep Quebec. And this is SNC-Lavalin is a gigantic company that has a questionable track record for corruption around the world, and particularly in Canada. And the allegation is that basically the company pressured Trudeau and Trudeau's colleagues when it fell under investigation to tell the Attorney General of Canada to call off the dogs, and that basically that's indeed what happened. So a number of people have already had to resign or giving testimony against the Prime Minister. Trudeau's popularity, which was very high last year, particularly when he stood up to Trump from a Canadian standpoint, read him the Riot Act and all that kind of stuff. He was flying high, but when these revelations came out, the Canadians were saying, wait a minute, we don't stand for this, and particularly for a worse than Watergate corruption scandal. So it's looking to me as if Trudeau he's certainly going to lose the election in October. Yeah.
This is a great one, Charles.
That is one of the best. Yeah, that perhaps should go in the screensaver.
Well, I didn't make it, so we could. Yeah. That was the height of his popularity, I guess.
Yeah. But so that's one to watch, because there's a lot of money that's come down from Canada to the Clinton Foundation illegally through the various foundations that Juster and his associates are affiliated with, and through this crazy thing called the what is it called? The Clinton-Justra Sustainable Growth Initiative. It's now changed the name again. So with a fall in government, particularly towards the conservative economic people, I think Trudeau and his allies, who have been supported by Juster, will have great difficulty stopping the gathering storm that's going to expose the Clinton Foundation and all its tentacles around the world, especially in Canada. Then we have in Norway, Hillary floated this balloon, that she was going to go to Norway and that she'd been going easy and she wasn't going to fly private, she'd fly commercial to make it easier, for her sponsors.
Hopefully on a 737 MAX 8.
That's harsh. That's harsh.
Too soon.
Right. Now we want her around to be tormented for as long as possible. We just don't want her to speak. So, why people would have spent $300,000 to hear her speak, which, every time I hear it's like, fingernails on a chalkboard.
Who spent $300,000?
The Norwegians paid her $300,000 to speak last week. And anyway, here's a piece that ran in media over here, drawing on a piece that ran through some of our colleagues in Norway. And I get reports now. In fact, I was asked to speak to one of our colleagues in Norway at the very beginning, half an hour into the show, and I said, that's going to be tough to do because I'll be on the show. But I'm hearing good things from Norway. I'm hearing that there's the equivalent brewing of a yellow vest movement over there.
Oh.
And people are quite anxious to have the truth exposed about the Clintons and to try to get the many hundreds of millions of dollars back that Norway has sent directly and indirectly to the Clinton Foundation frauds. And then, we have the final thing here. This is really disgusting. I don't know if you're familiar, when you hear the word lash, you say, well, how bad is a lash going to be? Eyelash, this kind of lash.
Did Van Jones talk about a white lash?
a lash in the Arab world, when women are lashed, they turn them over on their front, and then they take one lash will open the skin of your back. 148 lashes could very easily kill this person. Easily. It's not like a small little fly swatter. It's a somebody with a and this person.
And this is a human rights lawyer.
Right. And here we have the Me Too movement and Liawatha and AOC. I mentioned her again. Damn it. And all these people, Tlaib and Omar and everybody saying, AOC saying the United States is 10% above garbage. Iran, prior to the thugs, who now, the thugocracy, prior to the Shah, frankly, Iran has a storied history with great accomplishments in science, in the arts, literature, many different ways, really going back millennia. To see Iran in this place and to see the quiet that started, it was really disgusting in June of 2009 when Barack Obama was talking smack about the United States around the world, and when he could have gone up and encouraged the Green Revolution in Iran that came close to dispatching the thugs, the mullahs, in an election, when he could have done something to suggest that America had the back of the secular people, the people who want to chart a secular course forward for Iran, where all religions are respected. That failure was absurd. Then compounding it to give the amount of the billions of dollars which were unleashed into the Iranian thugs. In cash. And now we have this. Crazy. Where are all these bleeding hearts talking about this? Where's, what's the guy's name? Bill Maher? Where are all those people?
Well, I mean, it seems like a tremendous beating for somebody to get. Is it distributed over the 38 years or?
No, it's all at once.
Wow. It seems like you should get
brutal.
Either or. Although the lash is like, how can we be down with that at all?
Yeah, it's not like you get to negotiate it. It's like it's a different. You're a criminal.
I mean, that's. Oof.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about this. The sum and substance of this FBI complaint. It's not a Department of Justice complaint with an FBI affidavit, has to do with a purported foundation in California whose official name is the Key Worldwide Foundation. What's in a name? Well, it's okay. Key, that sounds important. Worldwide.
Yes.
Really important.
It's the key foundation.
And, and so according to this, there's an IRS 990 for 2013, I think it is. It says, note in red, that it's supposed to provide an education that would normally be unavailable to underprivileged students. Not the children of these millionaires and billionaires and Hollywood people who, it turns out were the beneficiaries, it seems, of this scheme. Now, this organization is located in a personal home. If you hit that link, Jason, I think it should show our viewers what this home looks like.
Oh, this is the organization?
Yeah, this is where the CEO, it's 261 Hartnell Place, I think.
In Sacramento.
That's wait a second, 261 Hartnell Place. I thought
This
the
says
address
265.
was, yeah, and I thought the address was 262. But, it's a very modest place. I wonder if it's one of those
Hard
sheds.
to find. Oh, I better register that shed, or Chris Gowan is going to have a word. So it's one of these homes around here.
Yeah, but we're not talking, we're not talking an office district. We're not talking a logical place to have a foundation. We're talking a very modest.
It's like a home run business.
Exactly. So if we go back into maybe some of our viewers who are in Sacramento can go out there and tell us where it really is. But these are extracts from 990s for the years 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016. And they show cumulative grants from the organization of $3 million, cumulative revenues of $7 million. So in other words, they took in $7 million and spent 43% of it on grants. Okay? In addition, there's a gentleman by the name of Gordon Ernst who was paid $1.5 million, or 21% of the revenues.
That's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I think he was one of the coaches, or tied into these. You see, and they don't explain that in the 990s in each year. They don't explain the significance of who Gordon Ernst is, and you're supposed to do that. And you see, I say financial highlights declared on Forms 990 for 2013 through 2017. What's missing? 2017. They decided they wouldn't file a form.
Oh.
Okay.
Why is that?
Because it's probably got even more problems in it. So they haven't filed a form concerning 2017. The FBI complaint goes on and on and on about transactions that occurred in 2017 and 2018. There's no 990. You have to file an IRS form, so this thing is starting out here. This took just a short period of time to put this together. This is a joke.
Well, how do you like this pretty explosive business growth from 2013 to 2016? They went from 450 grand, which is pretty good for the first year, to almost 4 million.
Right, and we don't know what they did in 17 and 18. And in the FBI complaint, they talk about it as being a $25 million scam. This is only 7.1. Well, who's supposed to regulate something like this in California? The Attorney General. Who was the Attorney General in this entire period?
Jesse Smollett's friend.
Exactly, Kamala Harris. I mean, and this is not the only California charity that is run amok. But here's an example, and it's audited by this firm over here. In quotes, audit. If you hit that link at the bottom.
Do you guys know any tigers?
This is like the JV to the JV.
Williams and Olds.
Yeah, the idea of doing things properly, that got too old for us. Exactly. We're not doing that anymore. If you go down, you'll see the page. The guy's James B. Williams.
He looks
there
happy.
He is.
He's like, hey, bring us your screwy business and we'll do the audit.
We'll do it. No problem.
What does MST stand for?
I think it says up top, Masters in the Science in Taxation.
Oh.
So this guy is,
Is there a science more?
Yeah,
of
it says
art?
here he's a member of the AICPA. Remember,
Where does
our
it say
friend,
that?
right there, American Institute of the Certified Public Accountants, member.
Holy cow.
That's standard, and that's what Hansen's chairman of.
Yes.
Eric Hansen's chairman. This guy's a mere member.
Oh, well,
right?
he's working his way up.
Right, and there's Mr. Olds.
Doesn't look that old.
Yeah.
So these guys did what? They
did nothing right.
Nothing.
When it comes to this particular thing, as we're going to show you. So we've said all along that if you want to give money to a charity, the first thing is it's nice if it would actually exist. And it's nice if actually a charity like this, which is supposed to be a public benefit corporation, i.e. serving the interests of the public, it's got to give all of its grants have got to go to public charities, right? So if we go to the next page or to the slide, I should mention before we get there, actually, there is no, on file in California, there is no IRS Form 1023 that I've been able to find for this scam. There's no determination letter. So there's no proof that this thing has ever validly been authorized as a charity to begin with. Maybe it has, and maybe it's just not on California's sloppy site. But what I've seen to date is that where charities operate in California from a California address, as IRS authorized charities, then there is the Form 1023, the application for federal tax exemption, and the determination letter normally. So, okay, we're going to do this somewhat laboriously. What we've done here is we've gone into their forms for 13, 14, 15, and 16, and we've gone and checked every single grant to see whether the entity that was receiving the money was a legitimate entity. And you remember our approach, Jason, is that green is good, red is bad. So the first page looks pretty red to me in that every single grant is fraudulent. So we start in 2013. They claim they gave 87% of their money to something called the Fullerton Football Academy. And there is no such entity in California. We checked in the proper spelling, which might have been FUT without the O ball. Right up here on this link, we put both in. There is no such thing. There's no such thing in Washington, D.C. as Georgetown Tennis. And when you add up the two listed grants on the 990, you get to 110, but they claim on the tax form they spent 115, so there's 5,000 missing. Okay. Going to 2014, one of the entities, the first entity, is something called Community Donations. It has kind of a ring to it. I just happened to notice that Community Donations is listed at the same address as Key West Foundation or Key Worldwide.
Really?
Yeah, so it's most likely a complete fraud as well. You can't, when you give money, and this we saw in the Clinton Foundation case, when you give money to Yale, unless there's a separately incorporated school, you give it to the university or you give it to the professional school or whatever. You don't give it to something called DePaul Religious Studies or something, DePaul University or college or whatever in Illinois. That's not a legal entity. They claim they gave something to Generation W in Florida, which as far as I could tell is not a Florida entity. You went to NYU. They list out their big grant, $204,000 to something called NYU Athletics.
Well, that's printed on a T-shirt, but I don't know that it's an actual thing.
Right, and they list the address as 183 Mercer Street, which is not the address, because I checked it up. There's another address for NYU Athletics, and I don't think that you would be giving a donation. What you have to do in these forms, you have to list out the employer identification number and your connections to any of these entities when you do this type of grant. And they of course didn't do that. And then
183 Mercer Street sounds to me like it's the address of the NYU Kohl's Fitness Center, which is like the student gym, which has been under construction for some time.
Right. I think it's just...
But it's not a charity, it's part of NYU.
Right, I understand. And then I made a typo here in 10, it should be USC women's soccer, but USC gets $225,000. None of these things are separate charity entities. And then once again, when you add up the listed grants and compare it to the number shown, there's $6,400 missing. And you start looking at this entity was only supposed to do work, this Key Worldwide Foundation, the Key Worldwide Foundation was only supposed to do work in California. So what's all this crap about sending lots of money to New York across state lines to Florida and Illinois and Washington, D.C.? I mean, who authorized that?
Charles, NYU Kohl's Sports Center is now called NYU 404 Fitness, and it's at 404 Lafayette Street.
I know.
It's been under construction for years.
I know. I'm just saying.
So what is that?
So if we go to the next page, and you see the pattern continues. In 15, you have, now you're up to 26 grants. Baruch College, yeah, that exists, but they don't give any employer identification number for that, or Chapman University. Why they're giving money to the city of Houston's beyond me. Again, the same deal. Money goes to an entity that I don't think is an entity at the address of the main charity. Then in 17, they're giving something to an entity that definitely, I checked in California, does not exist, the Friends of Cambodia. Again, NYU Athletics. They start giving big money to the University of Texas Athletics, a lot of money to USC entities, and $250,000 to Yale Summertime Sports, which is not a charity.
It doesn't even sound real.
I know. It's just sitting there. It's probably like in that house there, the headquarters, there's probably a lot of hemp involved.
Oh my God. Yeah, they're just coming up with stupid fake names.
Right. And remember, these things were audited. 2013, 14, 15.
Those guys definitely know the tiger, Charles.
They were trained by the tiger.
Exactly.
And so if we go to the next page, this is 16, the last year for which there is a 990, and there should have been a 990 for 17. There isn't one yet. The first thing they give money to is Ladylike Foundation. Now, if you could write down, Jason, that EIN.
I'll write it down. We'll just copy and paste it.
All right.
Oh, easier said than done, Charles. Why won't it let me?
I don't know.
There we go.
And then if we can go into Google.
Yes.
And punch in California Registry of Charitable Trusts.
Yep.
And get to the search page. And then let's put that EIN in there and see what we find.
EI in there. Where do you put that? Search.
Search. Do you see? No. You have to go down the page. It should charity research resources. Try that. Charity research resource. It probably says search somewhere.
Search tips.
Search tool. Yeah. And yeah, go down this page a little bit.
This is actually another good way to get your feet wet in socialism, is look at any web page created by a state government.
And take out the dash. And then let's hit search at the bottom there. Let's see what we find. Oh, it's not registered. Fancy that. That's because if you hit Ladylike Foundation, this link.
How does it even know what it is?
No address, no related document.
What's it doing here in the registry at all?
Well, it got $10,000 or whatever from this key worldwide foundation, supposedly. Let's go into the secretary, if we go back into Google and do Business Entity Search California.
Business Entity Search.
California.
Yeah.
And
that one?
Yep. Or either one, this one. Yeah. Here you go. Go down, entity name search. And I guess
it's not clear what the click is.
Yeah, they hit corporation name and then put Ladylike Foundation and see what you get.
Ladylike, one word?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So what do we want to do with
that? Hit that. It's not a foundation. It's not registered in California. They say they registered here.
Who's this?
Nice name, Lee Walker Pump. Pump and Dump.
Ooh, Slauson Avenue. I feel like I know where that is.
Well, but let's keep going down just the page to see the files. It only registers in 2018, right? If it only registered in 2018, how did Key Foundation Worldwide Yeah, how did they make a donation in 2016?
I don't know, but can you see where its address is? It's like the middle of this neighborhood, like.
Another one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like your average LA neighborhood.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's bogus.
I think you're right.
Actually, that's 5231. But okay, so going back in, so that's a $10,000 donation to that. Once again, Chapman University, NYU, athletics, USC gets some money. 11,000 to the community donations.
But are they actually sending it to USC even?
Who knows? Friends of Cambodia gets 19,000. Princeville Enterprises, which doesn't exist, it was suspended, gets 100,000.
Whoa.
And there's missing in 2016 $315,000. Right?
Yeah.
And this took about an hour and a half to go through this.
So you basically
This
saw
morning.
the news breaking and went and looked up a few
Yeah.
990s and were like, why did it take the FBI
Right,
so long to do this?
Exactly. It's just, this thing is not organized, was never operated lawfully. There are massive conflicts. There's evidence of illegal activities right and left. And yet, the very famous names that are part of this complaint, Felicity Huffman, the former CEO of PIMCO, which is a very big thing, the managing partner of Wilkie Foreign Gallagher, which is a prominent global law firm headquartered in New York. There's a long list of people who decided to give money to this fraud and did it. You know, this fraud, this charity was supposed to help underprivileged children, not movie star brats, not, you know, rich kid brats. And certainly this is the suggestion in the documents for this fraud are that it's going to go to minority kids, not you know, the children of millionaires and billionaires.
Well, a quick question though. In the case of somebody like Felicity Huffman or whatever, if somebody comes to them and says, hey, you know what? Donate some money to this charity and we'll like put in a good word, get your kid to go into college. I don't know Felicity Huffman. I don't know if she is like responsible business, like looking into the charity, or what I'm getting at is, what if the person just thought, oh, this will be fine. I'll just donate some money to this charity and it'll help my kid get into college. How do they know?
Well, so that's strictly illegal, all right? This is this whole concept of charities are not supposed to be operated.
But is it
other
illegal
than,
for the person giving the money?
Absolutely. It's especially illegal for them.
Wow.
So the whole idea is that a charity is supposed to be operated for a public purpose, not for any private gain. And private gain is defined not just in financial terms, it's defined as an advantage, an edge. So what you're describing there is a case study in getting private gain. You go, you know, you write a check for whatever the number is, 50,000, 100,000. You take this ne'er-do-well kid who should never have gotten anywhere near USC or Georgetown or whatever, and the ne'er-do-well gets into USC, Georgetown or whatever.
Right.
And so you're clearly getting a private gain. And you're also structuring it in a way where you get a tax deduction for paying a bribe.
That's crazy.
Which
That's pretty good.
You know, it's at a certain point, you know, I could understand Felicity Huffman and the actors saying, you know, that's how Hollywood works. You know, how do you think Jane Fonda got her start in show business? It wasn't because of her brain. It's because she had a famous father, you know, in the movie industry.
Well, that's just it. I think everyone there is very used to this kind of, you know, you bribe me and I'll scratch your back. There was a producer on a film I worked on who was my neighbor, who I thought was my friend, who just came to me and was like, you got to give me 10% of the budget or it's not happening. And I was like, you're out of your mind. But I had to do it.
You really?
Yes.
But so in charity land, you're not allowed to do that.
Well, this was obviously a private business deal and it was just, you know, screwy dealings. There's nothing I could do.
Right.
I don't think.
So if we go then to the next page.
I had mistakenly forgotten to include the link to the slides, Charles, but I've just
remedied that?
I've remedied that.
So why was I gleeful when I saw this? Okay, if we go to this, and it's shameless production, but if we, self-promotion, if we go to this Breitbart piece that I did March 16th, 2015, before Hillary announced, you see it has 83,000 Facebook shares. It hasn't moved much, you know, but still 83,000 is a lot. And this is back before I really knew a lot about charities. I knew enough to see that it was a fraud. If I could see that with no resources, no staff, no nothing, this article's been out there now for almost 4 years. Okay, I highlight the many red flags that should have caused the IRS to audit this thing a long time ago, and it didn't. And in the beginning, and the Clinton Foundation is massive. Its total declared revenues for the main entities are about $3.2 billion. So now we're going to take you through this FBI complaint. The FBI in Boston and maybe elsewhere, and the U.S. Attorney in Boston and maybe elsewhere, they did this very carefully. What they did is they managed to get some internal confidential witnesses, and they then got the right to wiretap people, and then they got donors on tape. That could be Girls Gone Wild, donors on tape. But
that guy's in jail, I think.
I know. So he knows how to wear a wire. So if we go back into the slide here, set this thing up, if we hit the second link, that is the actual 204-page legal document that was released yesterday, and it's a doozy. I mean, I can't say I've read all of it, but I've read a lot of it. And basically, it's a special agent comes forward and explains what they've been doing with this thing.
It seemed weird to me. Why is a special agent of the FBI putting an affidavit in?
Well, that's standard. The way that these things work. They explain, what they were investigating, and they list out. I don't know what is that? Why is it a number there?
I guess it's a Chinese guy.
No. The number's to the right.
This is the page.
The page
that
the
person
right
comes up on.
Right. So they list that all out, and if you go like 15, 20 pages into it, they go through, case after case after case of quote what happened. All right, and stop right there for a second, if you would. So what they do is they get each of the donors on a wire to memorialize that, basically they were paying a certain amount of money, first, in most cases, to get an element of this ring to take a test, either to fudge a test result or to take a test for one of these dumb kids, or kids who's not good at doing tests, to get a fake test score. And then they would get involved submitting fake applications. And then the real horrible thing that they would do is they would say they take the kid, and they in certain cases they recount, they say, look, what you got to do is you got to go to your advisor and you got to tell him that you're really stupid and you need extra time to take the test. And we'll arrange that. We'll get you a special dispensation. Now, I have one of my children that has a learning disability, a legitimate one, and we went through, reluctantly, we concluded that it was a learning disability. But one of the benefits, the only benefits of it, is that if you can, and it's tough to prove this particular one, if you can get a legitimate report backed up by experts, et cetera, then one of the benefits you do get is you get a lot more time to take a test.
For standardized tests.
And what these crooks figured out is that they could game that system and take control of the special rooms and places in certain portions of the country, put their own proctors into the room.
Wow.
And either have the proctor just, change the results, right
sort
there.
Of like Procter and Gamble.
Right, exactly. or have a dummy person go in, not the kid, and take the test.
Oh.
And just let that ride.
Wow.
Because you got the proctor. So they recount in case after case after case of this, and they take you through this 204-page document, many different examples of this, and they get the person to admit on a wire, yes, I did give you the money, yes, I did it because I knowingly wanted to get my kid cheating his or her way into school. In some cases, the kids knew about it. In many cases, the kids didn't know about it. In one sad and funny, both sad and funny section that I found, one of the kids who's guilty as hell knew about it. A trick they used is they said, well, we're going to game your test results, and we're also going to claim that you're a famous athlete, you have athletic prowess, because there's the coaches at all these schools have dispensation to bend the rules for kids that are phenomenally good at different things. So they would take these kids who they didn't play tennis, and they would lie.
Instagram
and they just
model
said,
sponsorship.
One kid, they just said, oh, well, we'll just say that you're the top 25 ranked high school kids and you're playing on the pro tour when you're not. They had another kid, oh, you're a lacrosse player. Well, there's no lacrosse program at the high school. Or they'd say you're a top basketball player, and the schools would want to see pictures of you playing basketball. So this guy was an expert in Photoshop.
Oh my
and he'd
God.
take, and it just, I mean, it's 204 pages of really, at moments, sad, laugh out loud, funny stuff. So they go get the parent or the donor to agree on a wire that they did all this stuff.
Wow.
And then...
Was the FBI doing this?
Yeah,
or?
I think so, yeah. And this is why I'm saying with the Clinton Foundation cases, my guess is for you and I to sit here and produce, you're the one doing the producing, but for you producing 148 videos, that's fun and interesting, but it's not the same as swearing out a complaint before a judge and making sure you have all these...
I do that at night.
You do that at night, right? You get the insiders, the Clinton people who've got to have been coming forward now for weeks and months to do this, wear the wire and have this compelling case, in writing that's set to go before a grand jury and then a judge, et cetera. Because in this case, you're not taking down the former president of the United States and the aspiring president in this thing, but we are trying to do that. And so you really got to go over your ground.
Yeah.
So having done all that work, here's the crucial reason I think we're in good shape. They introduced the classic con.
Ricardo Montalban?
No, the classic con. They get all these marks, these crooks, to admit on a wire that they did break the law.
Right.
And then, for the icing on the cake, in numerous cases, they call the mark up and they say, listen, something's come up. We're being audited by the IRS. And don't worry, this happens all the time. Well, does it? I mean, this is $7 million of revenue. The Clintons $3.2 billion. How come they haven't audited the Clinton Foundation if they're going to audit this thing? And they get these marks on the phone and say, we got to coordinate our stories. So, if the IRS calls you and asks you why you gave the money to the foundation, you can't say it was to bribe, to get a fake test result to break.
Right.
Like, you got to say you gave the money to this key worldwide foundation to help disadvantaged kids. And you can't explain any of these links. They don't say it exactly this way, but you can't explain the substantial private benefits that you derived as a donor to this fraud.
Wow.
So we don't have the time to go through this, but I thought it would be fun to lift what I consider to be one of the choice interchanges on page 106 of this document.
Of this
it's
one?
It's in the slide.
Okay.
I've already lifted it out. Okay, the confidential witness says, I just want to give you a heads up. They just started an audit on my foundation. And this guy with a funny name who's supposedly a California vintner or something like that. Oh,
Hunius?
Hunius. His name is in that summary in the thing. And he says, the confidential witness says, before anybody else, they're asking about the past and present payments. There's a payment of $50,000 for us for your daughter taking the test. Yeah, I remember. That's not so good. The confidential witness says, okay, make sure you're and I on the same page, because what I'm going to tell him is that you made a $50K donation for underserved kids and not that confidential witness 2 took the test for your daughter. And here's the money shot. The mark says, dude, what do you think? I'm a moron?
Charles, I've spoken with some of our FBI contacts. It is particularly difficult to get a tiger to wear a wire. So this was gotten at great expense.
So you look at this. This is the predictions that I would make based on what I've seen so far. First of all, this is not the only setup that's been doing this, right? I as a bet, the FBI is on to other organizations that have been doing this. Secondly, people in this thing are going to be, if they weren't singing before, they're singing now. Particularly, for example, that managing partner, Wilkie Farr & Gallagher, on top of the world, probably having made millions of dollars per year, a lawyer, a member of the bar. You cannot say the kind of things that he said that are on tape and hope to have much of a life. I mean, many of these families are going to be broken up. Many of the kids,
what do you mean?
There are going to be divorces. Kids say, how could you do this? And others,
That's bad.
It's really bad, and it's just the beginning. And as I say, there are other organizations involved. And if you're going to go to this level and devote this type of resources to go after what we know so far is a $7 million charity, it is indefensible for the IRS and the Department of Justice to give the Clinton Foundation a pass. It's indefensible. These are just actors. in the most, these are business people. We're talking about the political elite in the Republican, Democrat parties, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas. We're talking about a family that could have been running the world right now, Hillary Clinton. In which event we would be turning large rocks into smaller rocks if we still were allowed to breathe. If they're going to go to this level, the way they did it, they raided Felicity Huffman's home, Manafort style.
I know.
If they're going to do that, it's high time that the Chappaqua sidewalks got dusted off, and the D.C. sidewalks, and Ira Magaziner's mansion in Bristol, Rhode Island, and other places. All these people around the Clinton Foundation deserve the same level of scrutiny, if not more, because the amounts we're talking about are bigger, the consequences are more significant, and the scale of the fraud is so much greater in the Clinton Foundation than in this one, which is bad.
Escape Velocity on Periscope is telling us that the DOJ has said in court that this is just one of many shoes to drop.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case. And Alan, you mentioned your friend and buddy, and
he's not my friend. I just saw him outside the courthouse there.
I thought you got an honorary degree from Harvard Law.
He gave me the stink eye. If you look at the thumbnail, he's sort of like, I think he has only one functional eye.
Oh, could be. Well, he's 80.
He's 80.
So the thing of this that's interesting is that universities, this is like, I'm sure I've had the misfortune to have when you get cut, whatever, and I remember one time I was peeling a potato and I, slipped and I, scraped some skin off my.
What were you doing peeling a potato?
This was back in 1850 when we didn't have the
sense.
fryer in yet. I was there trying to help, the founder of McDonald's think through how to make French fries. No,
I believe
back in the day. But you do that, and that's not so bad, and it takes a little while for the sting to hit you.
Yeah.
You see this little bit of skin over there, and that doesn't hurt.
Right.
Similarly, in this one, this doesn't hurt at first, but then the university lawyers at USC and NYU and Harvard and Yale say, "Now wait a minute,
Right.
This did not just happen once." And how deep is this rot? How many other departments of these universities are doing the same thing that we don't yet know about, right? Because the competition for scarce places is so great globally. These degrees are so valuable. It doesn't take a village. It takes a crook. It takes a charity crook. That could be Hillary's next book. It takes a charity crook. But operating in these, fantastically well-endowed financially organizations, these charities, it takes a crook, now a coach, to start selling slots into these universities. So there's tons of people, who basically are cynical about life anyway and say, screw it. I'll pay $1 million, I'll pay $500,000, whatever. Get my kid in, sure. Junior went to Harvard. This is great. Now, did that happen in the past?
I'm sure.
To a lesser extent, not as blatantly as this.
Well, this is like an organized operation, but I mean, bribery is probably, they say prostitution is the oldest profession. It's probably the second oldest, because bribery had to come out before that.
Yeah, so this is, I think that your commenter is absolutely right, that this is just the beginning. There's a lot more to come. We've exposed already lots of evidence for the FBI and others to talk about and follow through, including just one that leaps to mind is this Children's Investment Fund Foundation in the U.S. giving money to Harvard University at 225 Water Street in, I think, 2010 or something like that.
That was that house that was not actually Harvard.
Well, I checked with Harvard. There is no development office of Harvard at 225 Water Street.
Well, that's what I mean. How do we know the universities actually even knew this was happening?
Well, you see, this is why when we talk about charities need to have tight financial controls. And
did this guy succeed at actually getting anybody into college, or did he just take the
apparently
bribes?
yes. Apparently yes. And so, this is something that absolutely, it just is really disgusting stuff. I remember back, in the Enron period where there were all these universities were making a big deal about it. This is something, there need to be congressional hearings on this.
But what did universities have to do with Enron?
Well, the universities had a lot of money, and so they didn't like to see people being defrauded, including their own endowments.
Well, they also had to pay for electricity, I guess.
Right, but no, the point is that they wanted to make, they wanted to attack the for-profit world. We're the not-for-profit universities.
But wasn't that the scam? Enron was raising the price of everybody's electric bill.
Right. I'm not saying Enron wasn't a scam. I'm saying that universities back then thought they occupied the moral high ground because they weren't messing around in for-profit activities. They are high and mighty. They can think the grand thoughts. They don't have to be bothered chasing profit.
Right.
You know, and I do think that there are many ethical people operating in that environment, but unfortunately, as it would appear to be in the historical FBI injustice, the management of these universities has gotten greedier and greedier and greedier. After all, Epstein and Summers and Dershowitz were all meeting apparently because Epstein was going to make a $40 to $50 million donation to Harvard. That was one of the reasons that they had the meeting supposedly on Epstein Island. You know, there needs to be, as we think, you did mention, I'm going to go into this later, I hope, if we're successful with the Clinton Foundation, we need to think through why a university like Harvard or Yale or NYU, for that matter, that has a multi-billion-dollar endowment, why does that, and that has for certain the ability, unless this cleans them out, to continue down a path of having 10 times as many people apply for the spots as they accept. You know, why does that financially well-endowed university or educational institution that also typically operates a hospital that makes money, why do they also need the benefit of not paying taxes on their profits, in quotes, their notional profits, and of having their wealthy donors be able to take unlimited tax deductions for continuing this game? You know, why is that appropriate? I think universities have, and it's unfortunately the biggest and best known, you know, they have, I think, most abused the public trust. Here in New York, for example, NYU and Columbia are among the largest landowners, and they don't pay much in the way of property taxes.
I don't approve of that.
Right, well, and so
NYU is for sure a for-profit business.
Right, and in addition to that, with some exceptions, Texas and Florida, most of the states that play big in this game, in the tax deduction fraud game, are the high tax states that are going bankrupt, like California and New York and Massachusetts and Illinois, the very same states that are going to come forward and shortly ask Congress and ask Trump if there is a downturn, we need a bailout. But we're not going to.
That's been all over the news that New York is on the verge of financial disaster.
Right, and you know, and they're allowing these.
And NYU is just buying up the real estate.
Right, exactly. Well, and so this is a case where I have said in the past, and I'll reiterate, that charity land does lean to the left, and there are many charities that have a left-leaning, well-run operation that play by the rules. Sadly, the minority, the small minority of charities, the Clinton Foundation, the Obama Foundation now, the Bush Foundation. The vocal minority, that are giving the whole sector a very bad name and putting the whole sector at risk of rough justice here. You know, because I would, if it were left to me, I'm a huge fan of the 80-20 rule, that 20% of the number of foundations account for 80% of the action. So we don't need to do something that says, let's audit everybody. No, you just take the top 100 institutions, top 500 if you have the resources, and say, you know what? This is going to be a proctology audit. This is not going to be like nice little audit. We're going to go through soup to nuts. We're going to go through all your corporate records. We're going to have FBI people involved. You better not lie to the FBI as we go through this. You know, we're going to shake these trees hard. And, you know, people who pass the scrutiny, they pass the scrutiny. People who don't pass the scrutiny, they may get liquidated, and trustees may go to prison, and accounting firms may go to prison, and lawyers may go to prison. That's what we take this stuff seriously.
Charles, Rise Above is watching on Periscope and asks, how could they think they wouldn't eventually get caught? It's an excellent question for any of the people that we are investigating here, but I don't know. That's the mind of a criminal. I mean, obviously anyone who has a conscience or any sense of consequences would say, I don't know, this sounds like a crime. Maybe I'll just let my kid go to whatever college they can get into legitimately.
Well, I think what the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes have shown, they've figured out in this complex mess that we call government, there are a number of consequential positions. The Deputy Attorney General of the United States is very powerful. The head of the FBI reports to that person. Head of the IRS, very powerful. Attorney General, very powerful. And maybe there's some other positions inside these federal things, a similar approach in the states. And the key states where tax deductions are very valuable, or most valuable, are the ones with high taxes, which typically are controlled by Democrats. So they probably figured that they had the prosecutorial discretion issue buttoned off, because the people who might make that decision were chiefly allies of the Clintons and the Obamas.
Well, you've caused me to think of another item I wanted to bring to your attention, Charles. I was talking with Michael Moore last night, and True Pundit, of course, has this story here about Arkansas having reinstated Hillary's revoked law license.
Is that Hillary or a deer in the headlights?
Yeah, well, it's a great picture of Hillary, but, you know, True Pundit speculates here that this could be setting the stage for Hillary Clinton to become Attorney General or to join the Supreme Court should Democrats, you know, retake the presidency in 2020.
Well, on the Supreme Court, I'd love to, I don't think that's going to happen. And the confirmation hearings, if, unless they were, if you posit a Democratic landslide in 2020, right, if that's what you think is going to happen, then maybe there is a scenario which says that Hillary could have her pick of positions, Supreme Court or Attorney General. I don't think she would settle for the Attorney General, but I long wondered why Obama didn't appoint her to the Supreme Court, because she would have made sure right away that John Roberts was edged out as Chief Justice, and that would have been a nightmare on the equivalent of Elm Street in Washington, D.C.
Hillary Clinton in the Supreme Court?
She's a horrible lawyer. I mean,
Of course.
And she's an excellent liar, horrible lawyer.
And so how do we propose the Democrats are going to win in 2020?
I'm not advocating that view, but I think, again, if we had a financial... What?
I don't think it's going to happen.
That's not going to happen. But if you had a financial calamity and geopolitical setbacks and...
creepy Uncle Joe, perhaps?
I don't think creepy Uncle Joe, but...
Charles, sorry to interrupt you, but we have an excellent question here from Quaret Vera, saying, if these universities are nonprofit, how come people can't deduct tuition as a donation?
Because you're getting a fee. Tuition is a fee for the service teaching that you're getting.
Well, why are they allowed to charge that for-profit fee and not pay taxes on it?
Because you're allowed to charge program service fees. But the thing is, when you make these universities that I'm speaking of, the Harvards and the Yales, they came into existence well before there were income taxes. So they're, not to say they're grandfathered, but they didn't go through the process of filling out a Form 1023. They haven't had to make the kind of applications. And I'm wondering whether these old, well-established institutions shouldn't have to have, particularly ones that have transgressed so obviously, should they have to get, go through a re-examination, a rigorous re-examination period? And I think the answer to that question is yes. A better question, an additional question might be, and here I went to Harvard Business School. Harvard Business School is enormously profitable, as you would hope. And so remind me why it deserves taxing.
Well, right. If it wasn't profitable, that's like going to a 500-pound cardiologist. So Sherry says that Hillary Clinton needs to join hell, not the Supreme Court.
That's right.
Well, that's interesting insight.
Her reputation has already...
And then we've got Truth Seeker, is the bar in with the deep state? I presume he's talking about the Bar Association, not William Barr, but I think the answer might be yes to both.
Could be. So what I want to do here in just the final 19 minutes or so, is the next page. And I didn't put in here, because there's not enough space, every single thing we might have put in to kind of look back over 2016, the crucial period 2016, in a little bit more depth. I don't know, Jason, if you remember that on Fox News with Chris Wallace on April 10th, 2016, if you hit that...
I'm almost certain I wasn't watching Fox News.
You were watching Bernie rallies?
Well, I don't know.
So this is a great story, actually. Americans for Tax Reform is a good organization, but they're reminding people that Barack Obama said, listen, sitting President of the United States says, Hillary didn't mean to do anything wrong in mishandling the classified information, so this is going nowhere. right? That she would never intentionally put America in any kind of jeopardy. That's not the legal standard. I mean, the people who are in prison
It's also
now,
not the truth.
right? Exactly. The people who are in prison for mishandling classified information, there's no intent requirement. You either mishandle it or you don't, and it doesn't matter whether you intended to be an idiot.
What happened to, not to dovetail off of idiot, but there was that guy who was famously compared, he was a Navy guy who took a selfie in some submarine, got in, and they threw him in jail. So, but he's out now, I think. What does he say about Hillary and all that? We should try to find that guy.
Yeah. But the reason there's no intent requirement, I understand, is to put the fear of whatever you fear into you. When you get around, first you need to know what classified information is,
right?
Especially if you're the Secretary of State, and you have the ability to classify or declassify things. It's to put the fear of, again, whatever into you, so that when you come into contact with classified information, you don't allow it to go astray.
Yeah.
And the defense of, I didn't intend.
Being stupid is not a defense.
Well, and I wonder if it isn't projecting, if it isn't Barack Obama trying to lay down a marker saying, well, I didn't intend to,
right.
So I'll let Hillary off because
I didn't intend to forge my birth certificate. Somebody else did.
Yeah, exactly. Did I benefit? Let's move on. So by December, let's not hit this. Okay. This is the Wikipedia. I always regard Wikipedia as a place to start, and I generally try to, if I'm going to be serious about using anything from Wikipedia, I want to check all the footnotes and double check or whatever. But I wanted to quickly refresh my recollection of when it was that Donald Trump became the presumptive nominee. Wikipedia says May 3rd, 2016. Okay, and I think the Democrats at that moment breathed. They were happy. They were saying, "This is great. We've got the Billy Bush tape. We've got these women are going to come out of the woodwork. We've got all sorts of things. We can throw all kinds of mud at this guy. This is beautiful." So on May 5th, Alana Goodman, who you've met.
Yeah, she was at the Mark Meadows hearing.
Yeah, she and I had been talking. She'd done a bunch of different stories, but if you hit this link, this is about yours truly, and this is the first story that got a lot of attention because Alana's very good at what she does. She is a great journalist, and she made the connection that I, who had been digging into GE, which is a lot more complicated than the Clinton Foundation, and had been proven right about GE, was coming forward to say that the Clinton Foundation was charity fraud. And if you go down, this is tooting my own horn a little bit, but I just want to show you how she did it. She had a piece here, and then it says here, she lifted something from the Sunday Times of London, May 17th, 2009, describing me as an okay analyst. And and so this
better than a tiger.
Yeah, just a little bit. So anyway, this is a story that got a fair amount of attention. We go back into the slides. Just keying on the dates, by the 7th, Zero Hedge writes a big piece about that and other stuff on my site. But notice this only got 11 shares.
11?
Yeah. Well, this is just the very beginning. Hillary was going to be president. And people are like, Trump, Hillary? It's not even close.
I mean, but 11, that seems so low.
I know, I'm just saying, just gives you a sense of how things have moved. Right?
Yep.
So back in the slide, we're now still in May. And Comey, in theory, the Lisa Page revelations, Comey's working on drafts to exonerate Hillary Clinton. Sarah Westwood writes another piece, again in the Washington Examiner.
Actually, Alana's at the Washington Examiner now.
So this is May 15th, basically expanding on Alana's piece and the Zero Hedge piece. And then,
it's not loading that quick.
It's okay. It'll be there for the people. And then Richard Pollack, by the 24th of May, he's really stepping it up. He writes a thing about that money went to the Clinton Foundation from people involved in basically extractive industries in countries that are really bad. And again, this only got 74 Facebook shares.
Blood minerals.
Right. Then, about a month later, Bill Clinton and A.G. Lynch meet by accident.
Whoops.
Right. in Phoenix. Oh yeah, what are you doing here, Loretta? You know, and you have that. I chose this story because in the text there's more extensive links.
Doesn't he look weird sitting in this chair with like his feet dangling?
Yeah,
There's
high
something
chair.
strange about that photo.
There's a link to the Horowitz report if people want to look at that again. You see that pages 205 to 211 describing the tarmac meeting. I'm not buying that at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, this Horowitz report was like the most nothing burger,
Right.
hyped.
Right.
Nothing came of that.
Right. And then here the FBI interviews Hillary Clinton, and for people like Judge Napolitano who continue to insist that there is no record of this interview, here is the record of the interview. It's part 2 of 30.
Why did Judge Napolitano
I don't know.
say that?
I don't know. But you see that in this interview, you've got, ordinarily you wouldn't have your lawyer, David Kendall, another lawyer, Catherine Turner from Williams and Connolly, Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson, and somebody else. I think we're all fact witnesses. You have, and suspects, frankly, and then Peter Strzok's in the room. You know, and here's, I think it's an 11-page summary of this interview, which wasn't very stressful. And it wasn't like, you know, showing up at Whitehaven, the house of the Clintons in D.C., at 5 o'clock in the morning with 29 FBI agents
Busting
with
in
guns.
the door and dragging them out in their
Right.
skivvies.
It's like we don't want to know what's going on at 5 o'clock in the morning at that house. But so there is a record of this thing, and experts in the FBI would know whether just how aggressive this was. I'm told that when you read the FBI operations manual that's publicly available, you know, there's one approach if you want to go after Gambino.
Right.
And there's another approach if you want to go after Mother Teresa. I mean, you don't necessarily. I'm not suggesting that you should to treat every potential suspect the same way, but given the significance of this, given the fact that you're going to interview somebody who could have well become the president of the United States, I would say that you should have you should have been tough on her, not weak, so that you could say with a straight face to the American public, listen, we treated her, we didn't give her any deference. You know, that's
Charles,
not what happened.
5 in the morning at the Clinton household, I would say the flatware is flying.
And the glass figurines.
Yeah.
So by the 13th of July, here's Marsha Blackburn, who, remember, Comey has cleared Hillary by the 5th of July.
Yeah.
But here's Marsha Blackburn, who I think is a saint, you know, who says, in so many words, F that, you know, we're going at this. This is not right. We know what is going on at this Clinton Foundation. We want to see, we want to understand what's going on with the Clinton Foundation. She issued a letter, was co-signed by colleagues, and stories started flying in July 13th, 2016. So the pressure is building in this time frame. You know, the public wants to know what is the story at this Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
Right? And when we go back into the slide.
Sorry, that Boeing story caught my eye.
That's all right. Here, Richard Pollack reports on the 28th of July, there is an actual investigation. And that's July 28th, 2016, and he's very thorough. But again, look at the story, only 2 shares.
Wow, come on, that seems crazy.
Yeah.
Just the word Clinton and IRS, you'd think enough people would be looking at it that more than 2 would share it.
And it's surprising, actually, for somebody of, well, this is Tyler Durden. I mean, it's surprising that Zero Hedge would only get 2 shares on this story then. But again, you're going into the summer vacation. Hillary was going to win. Trump was going to stumble. The Washington, D.C. insiders had it all for Hillary.
Charles, some of our viewers are confusing Marsha Blackburn with the Los Angeles prosecutor who was involved in the OJ thing. That was Marsha Clark?
Clark.
Yeah, not the same person.
No, ixnay on that. So we hear, again, Wikipedia claims that Crossfire Hurricane, so we get an investigation open into the Clinton Foundation.
Donald Trump conspiracy theory. Wikipedia is such a stupid thing. I'm not sending any money to Wikipedia anymore.
But this article and other sources suggest that Crossfire Hurricane had been opened officially by July 31st, 2016, This is not. This would obviously need to be rewritten. This is bogus.
It says it's a false conspiracy theory.
I know.
Oh, look at that. Conspiracy theory is the fear of a non-existent conspiracy or the unnecessary assumption of conspiracy. Actually, it's just a theory about more than one person committing a conspiracy.
Right, exactly.
It's such a stupid thing.
But nonetheless, we know that officially there was some sort of investigation opened by around July 31st, 2016. Some suspect that an investigation into Trump principals and possible Clinton rivals may have begun well before July 31, 2016. So going back into the slide, we then move through August, forget August, people are on vacation, into the 8th of September 2016, when I publish on my site more specific details, summaries of the 40 exhibits that I've felt. I'm now up to more like 53 or 9 exhibits that I've been working on for now 3 years, that show beyond a doubt that this Clinton Foundation is the largest unprosecuted set of charity frauds ever attempted in history. And this story, if you hit that link, remember the first one in July 28th gets 2 shares, and this one gets 4.3 thousand shares.
Quite a few more.
And suddenly the mood has changed.
Indeed. But don't you think people would be on this site and looking for other articles about it and get more than 2 people to find it?
I don't know. But so something changes between July 28th, 2016 and September 8th, 2016, and I've got to believe that there are a lot of emails flying around amongst the Clinton campaign, the FBI, IRS, others. There are stand-down orders being given by people in the Attorney General's office, Department of Justice, to the FBI people saying, listen, you're just not going to do any more work on this Clinton Foundation fraud because Hillary's going to be the president, and the President Obama doesn't want to see this go anywhere, so you're going to stand down, no more work. And we, the people, deserve to understand. We deserve to understand why a conservator was not appointed to sit on top of this fraud a long time ago. Had it been done a long time ago, fewer people would have been damaged. Fraudsters who want to use charities, purported charities, as a way to launder money, fatten their own wallets, support their lifestyles, fund their campaigns, would see the hard way that you don't want to go down that path. But that didn't happen.
Right.
Instead, and we don't yet know the full significance of who all was involved, but I think momentum has been building for some time. I am hoping, that the good people in the FBI and other investigators have indeed got many other things going at the same time, and each day that passes now, we're going to see more and more leverage operate against the Clintons. I think it's going to be soon in the interest of the Democratic Party to ensure that Team Clinton is consigned not just to the dustbin of history, but to the garbage disposal bin of history. And then that leaves open the question of Obama. Now, if the Obamas had taken advice that I and others gave them to fix their foundation and bring it into compliance with law, I wouldn't feel as I now feel, that they don't intend to do that. They intend to emulate the Clintons. They intend to take this fraud to a higher or lower level, depending on how you look at it. And we've given them every opportunity to mend their ways. He's out with Michelle saying they want to find 1 million Michelle and Baracks to, whatever they did, they want to do it 1 million times worse, better or whatever. And, they just don't want to play by the rules. And if they don't want to play by the rules have to teach them a lesson.
Charles, what do you think about the law firm Sidley Austin?
It's another great firm. Michelle worked there, briefly, as I think Obama had a summer job there. I've used them in the past. There are many fine people there.
Bernadine Dorn worked there.
That's not
terrorist.
That's not good.
How could a law firm hire a bomber? Not Obama, a bomber.
Or both.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but Sidley and Austin, for example, in the investment fund...
Are we sure they're not just a swamp law firm?
Most large law firms have...
Swamps in them?
Well, they're just...
In-house swamp?
Well, no, they have a Republican Republican-tied group and they have a Democrat-tied group, and that's how if you're of a law firm, you can't go out of business when
I don't
the
mind
Congress
Republicans and Democrats so much as whether underground terrorists who are dedicated to destroying the country and killing people.
I got a problem with Bernadette Dorn.
Yeah.
And what's the guy's name? Ayers?
Bill Ayers, right.
Ayers.
Basically, Michelle Obama, Bernadine Dorn was like her mentor.
Right. Not good. That's not good.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know.
And just closing this out, this isn't all of the information that we could put here, but to me, it seems like the Obama administration made major errors letting Hillary Clinton even consider running while she was under FBI investigation for mishandling classified information beginning July 10th, 2015. That decision is inexplicable. Until you go into the history, as we've been doing in these many videos, when you look at the degree to which the Clinton Foundation was a massive fraud, starting as a massive fraud in 2004, certainly a fraud, an unprosecuted and unexplored fraud, just as the incoming Obama transition team signed that stupid memorandum of understanding on dated December, whatever date it was, 2008. I think the Clintons duped the Obamas. I think once they got in together in this big scam, they couldn't rat out each other. It was like mutual assured destruction. They forged this compromise. Hillary supported Obama. Obama didn't prosecute Hillary in the hope that they'd stumble across the finish line and she'd become president.
Hope, change.
That's right. Exactly.
You had all that. Yeah, Obama's just totally full of it.
So I think having been through just this one small sliver on
Truth Seeker tells us Bill Ayers was Obama's mentor and neighbor.
Yeah, and his father, Bill Ayers' father, was also involved.
What?
Bill Ayers' father was very wealthy.
Jeez, I don't understand why Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn aren't in jail. They're teaching at the Northwestern University or something like that.
That which happens to be one place, I think, where where donors got a kid into Northwestern as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, wow, Charles, it all seems interconnected, doesn't it?
It does. And on that subject, it really is, when you have a game where people aren't playing, where there are rules, and you have a group that doesn't play by the rules and gets ahead all the time and makes a mockery of the rules, thumbs its nose at the rules, then the game is no fun playing. That's what I used to, when I would play tennis, not ever professionally, but seriously.
Call foot faults and George
I
Soros.
did do that several times, loudly. But, you reach the conclusion that you're playing with a cheater, is going to miss. My reaction would just say, fine, I give up. I'm not going to play.
This is part of the problem that I have with Ocasio-Cortez and her supporters. I don't think the United States needs socialism. I think capitalism is the economic system that is most directly compatible with human nature in terms of people being driven by self-interest, let's call it. That's just the universal driver. What we need is to stamp out corruption and theft and gaming of capitalism, like all these...
It's not socialism. In her case, it's sillyism.
Yeah.
It's just she's being silly. Her comments make no sense.
Yeah.
But you have all these fawning, we're in the adoration phase. We got all these fawning pundits who think, oh, this is a bright, shiny object over here. Let's say it's fantastic, it's new, it's squeaky clean. It's an idiot.
I mean, the ideas that she's sort of, in a general sense, behind, the notion that we're going to create new technologies to make more sustainable energy sources and jobs, yeah, that makes sense. But to just sort of put it out there without any understanding of how current industries work, what those proposed technologies might be, it's just a political talking point. It's not any kind of real actionable plan. And when people start to look at the actual things proposed in the plan, they're totally unfeasible, and that makes it completely stupid.
Right. Exactly. I mean,
with that, Charles, I would thank you once again for, that was a really like almost impromptu presentation with the news coming out yesterday, and we've already got the 990s and the addresses of the fraudulent places. I tell you, if they would put you in charge of the FBI.
No, thank you. Then I'd have to work.
Right, but I think you could get more done in a weekend than they've gotten done in the past, 18 years.
Well, they just got to, they've got to open up a department that gets rid of the obstruction of justice department.
The Federal Bureau of Actually Investigating
Right.
would be the new name of it.
Right.
Well, Charles, I'll remind people that Crowdsource the Truth is a viewer-sponsored show, and so I hope that people will go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and also paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth for $10 or more. You're going to get that great Sunday with Charles screensaver, and the sponsorship is what keeps the show going. We both sort of like move out of the frame on this wide shot by the end of it. It's okay. But anyway, that's it, right?
That's it.
Very good. Well, I'll see you on Sunday, Charles.
Looking forward.
Thanks for a great show. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.